Welcome. In this video, I'll be showing the process by which I created this rock planting of Juniperus horizontalis on this custom-made concrete rock that I made earlier. This is made entirely without muck or keto, only using sphagnum moss and substrate. And I'll show you the process. The great advantage is that you have superior aeration and you don't have cracking of the muck as it dries. First, there was different choices that I could use for the um, container, and I decided to go with this rectangular one for the contrast with the rock. The first step is to attach the rock to the container, and I'm using chalk here to mark the positions where I can make use of the existing drainage holes and where I need to create a new attachment point in the container for the rock. So I'm using a tile drill bit to make an additional hole, and now creating the holes on the cement rock. I am now preparing the container as a normal container would be prepared, and we will proceed with the attachment of the rock. As you can see, I'm using two supports under the rock. These are made of wood, and now marking the strategy of how the wires will be placed into the container. I'm utilizing 17 gauge electrical fencing galvanized steel wire. It's quite important that it's for electrical fencing because it's much stronger than standard galvanized steel wire. I'm using this wooden platform to prevent contact between the rock and the container and to maximize the area that can be occupied by roots in the container. I'm placing a rubber mat under the wood to serve as a cushion in case of any impacts, and also to prevent slippage. Now the substrate is in place, and I'm using 111 Shabazai pumice and diatomaceous earth. The rock is now being attached, and it's quite solid in place. The next step is to start dealing with the trees, with the root system. First, I'm cleaning a little bit dead foliage and whatnot from the trees, and then I am using only a chopstick, as I normally do, to untangle the roots. The idea is to spread them as much as possible and bring clarity to the root system, but try to cut as little as possible of the root system. In this case, I cut almost nothing of the root system. Of course, any mechanical action on the roots will inevitably damage some roots, but as you can see in the table, it's mostly garden soil substrate. Now I am playing with the position of the trees in the rock. I have a vague idea, but I'm trying here to experiment with different positions. And as you can see, the roots are quite long and they will reach all the way to the container below. I'm using the angle of the rock as a guide to lead the angle of the trunk line of the upper tree, and the lower tree will be nested in the off side of the rock. This rock planting was created in late May, which is it was quite a hot day, but just the beginning really of the spring here in Canada. And now with the drill, I'm starting to drill the holes on this cement rock for the attachment points of um, the wire that will hold the tree and the root system in place. Now, with a real rock or with a different type of rock, every case is different. The strategy used to attach the rock, the tree will be different. In this case, the rock is hollow, and so I will use a particular strategy here to attach the tree that is different from what I would have to do if it were a real rock, for example, that is not hollow. But the fact that it's hollow is very useful here, as you will see in a moment. In order to attach the tree and the root system, I'm using copper wire, and I'm bending it in half, as you can see, and really tightening the bending point. So this is a double wire, and now I'm twisting this to make a hook, as you can see now. And this hook now will be further squeezed together using the edge of the chopstick to keep the extremity apart only. And so with one finger I hold the double wire, and with the other I put the edge of the chopstick, and I create this hook. This hook serves once it goes inside the tree, and here I need to increase a little bit the size of the hole. But once it goes inside, it gets hooked on the inside, and it's quite immobile. As you can see, I can lift the entire composition with this wire. So this is not going anywhere once it's tensioned. Now I'm drilling uh, wires everywhere, and this is the final result with the wires that will hold either trees or the root system in place, guiding it to the container. One mistake that I made here perhaps is the fact that I did not cover the container, and there is all this dust of concrete, which is very basic, going down and soiling the substrate. So looking back at this, I should have covered the container once I need to make this drilling that will spread concrete dust everywhere. The concrete is sealed on this rock, so there is no problem of leaching alkaline um, compounds and increasing the pH, but the dust is something that I would have preferred not to have had. Now, of course, it did not appear to have had any detrimental effect on the tree, as you saw in the beginning, final result already 5 weeks later, and I will show again at the end. But nevertheless, is something that I would perhaps be more aware in the future. So now I'm attaching the first tree. I put a base of sphagnum moss and substrate for the tree so that the roots are not directly on the rock. And now I'm passing the wire through the root system to attach the first tree. Now I'm starting to place some sphagnum moss between the root system that is going down the vertical wall into the container, and this is quite a precarious process. And as you can see, I have stuff falling down, and it's time to stop. This is not working. So this is a great technique to utilize when you have uh, an angle that is quite horizontal, but with a vertical or past vertical angle, it's really hard. It's like trying to make a sandwich full of stuff inside, holding two sides of the bun vertically in the air. It just doesn't work. So uh, I came up with the idea, which I don't know if it's new or not, to create sort of um, long fiber sphagnum moss and substrate sushis horizontally, and then attach them to the tree. This is one such sphagnum moss sushi. It has substrate in the middle, and I will show you in a moment how it's made. But then I can attach this very easily to the tree, to the wall, and fold it around the roots that are there, as you can see in the back, and then attach the entire thing to the rock. The process of creating this sphagnum moss sushis is quite simple. I take the thinnest gauge of wire. It doesn't matter if it's copper or aluminum. In this case, it's copper. And I create a little 10 centimeter long tracks, as you would see on a rail track, and I put them parallel to each other, spaced a few centimeters apart. I then spread the long fiber sphagnum moss across this track and making sure to have it interwoven between the different sections so it will hold together. And I'll put substrate in the middle as much as I feel necessary to put. And I will then cover it with additional sphagnum moss. So this is the sushi that I'm referring to. And now I close each of the tracks, and with a bit of wire that remains after twisting it, I twist it down so that it gets hooked on the next uh, line of copper wire. So there is a sort of a spine going down of the little bit of wire. In most places it's not perfect, but there is a spine going that holds one vertebra of copper wire, if you will, to the next one, and it is flexible. You could perhaps put a piece of wire going down as a column, and that wouldn't hurt either. But this is quite simple of a mechanism, and then this can be attached to the tree quite easily, and it doesn't matter what angle. Now, this is the idea that I came up with at the heat of the moment to make this work. But if you can pause now for a moment again, we will we will discuss what would be even better to do, which is I could, instead of mounting the tree on the rock and then using these sushis, I could design where I want the tree to go and then build the sushis for each trance of roots that I will create with the tree on the table, and then lift the entire tree with its hanging trances made of sphagnum moss and substrate with the roots inside, and mount that on the rock as if you can imagine a wig being put on top of a wig template or holder. That would be much more efficient. So that 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 I just described is what I will do in the future. It's not what I did here. Here I'm just using the sphagnum moss sushis, placing them on the rock where the tree is already planted. But in the future, I will instead um, build the entire tree with the root system before mounting it, and then mount the whole thing. The additional advantage of this new idea is that the the roots will be immediately protected once uh, I build that, and it doesn't it minimizes the amount of time that the roots are drying out in the air. Of course, there will be an extra weight there, so you have to perhaps be careful or perhaps have the help of someone. I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely a superior technique. So in this video I showed you the idea of the sphagnum moss and substrate sushis, and also the idea of doing the entire thing as a wig or trances on a wig, and mounting the entire tree with that on the surface that you plan to plant it on. That would be far faster and easier to do. So now I am continuing with the planting, uh, placing sphagnum moss around the the root system and using hooks to make a sphagnum moss wall and planting the second tree, you can see the amount of roots that are going down to the container. So really, this tree was not impacted or minimally impacted at all on this work. There are a number of additional sphagnum moss sushis to put, and I suppose it's important to remind you that this is long fiber sphagnum moss. It's important that it is long fiber sphagnum moss because that creates this network of fibers that interconnect and hold each other um, in place. You can look at this as a giant air layer, and then you recognize that it's very healthy for the roots. The roots can grow there. It has the advantage of far superior aeration than muck, and also not cracking when it dries out. So there is no danger that this will fall apart. This is the final result that day prior to the application of moss. Unfortunately, I did not film the application of moss, but each strand of moss was applied independently and put in place with a chopstick embedded into the sphagnum moss. This is the result 5 weeks later. As I showed in the beginning, the moss is already growing and the trees are healthy. I hope you enjoy the result and that entices you to try it out yourself. And I will certainly be doing newer things, but this opens a whole set of new possibilities without Muck. That is for now. Until the next one, bye bye for now.